So that's why you're seeing companies now setting aside space in the day or physical space in the office where people can just get away from it all and find that tortoise mode, if you like. So whether it's a chill-out room or a massage suite or a napping capsule. In Spain, 20 years ago, corporate Spain looked at the siesta and said, we don't want that anymore. That's a symbol of the old Spain, the lazy Spain, the slow Spain. Today, the biggest companies in Spain are bringing back the siesta. Not the traditional siesta of 2 bottles of Rioja and 3 hours sleep. That's gone forever, sadly, except maybe on vacation. But a leaner and meaner siesta. Maybe half a glass of wine and 20 minutes kip, and then back to the coalface, sharper, more creative, more get up and go than ever before. So that would be the second way to think about how slow works in the workplace, is by working more slowly. The third, and this is maybe the most relevant in this conference, is to renegotiate our relationship with technology. Now, I'm no Luddite, and no one else in the slow movement or at the spearhead of it is. In fact, I love these gadgets, and I've got an inner geek, and I have them all. But we have to remember that all of these tools come with a little red button that says off on it. And the trouble is that we don't push that button. We don't use it enough. And that's actually doing us harm. It's doing us harm because it's eroding our private time and intruding on moments like lovemaking in the bedroom, but it's also not giving us the space to think properly. And this message is coming not from aromatherapy cooperatives. It's coming from the big high-tech companies now. So for instance, Hewlett-Packard put out a report recently called Infomania, warning that the constant barrage of electronic interruptions in the workplace causes our IQ to fall 10 points in a day. 10 points. That's double the equivalent of smoking a joint. So on one hand, we have this idea, and it's been put around, I think, quite a lot in this conference, that being always on is the future, that being the guy who answers every email instantly is going to turn you into some kind of uber-productive master of the universe, when in fact, being always on and always interruptible is far more likely to turn you into Ozzy Osbourne or Pete Doherty or Cheech and Chong for the Americans in the audience. And that's why you're starting to see now companies creating a new relationship with technology where people switch off, where they ring-fence moments when they use it and ring-fence other moments when they don't. Email-free days, for instance. IBM, there's a senior executive at IBM who's launched what he calls a slow email movement. And you think, what on earth is slow email? I mean, email is the fastest thing going. But he's just saying a very simple thing, which is that email is magnificent. It's a wonderful tool. It's a revolution to be embraced, but we need to use it less. He suggests check your email 2 times a day. I find that a little extreme, and I expect a lot of people in this room, especially those who are up on their laptops at the moment, probably find that a bit extreme too. But surely, 2 times a day has got to be better than 2 times a minute. So when you put those 3 things together, unplugging the technology, working less, changing gears and working at different speeds during the day, it adds up to the same thing. I was in Australia recently, and one of the leading business magazines had done a big cover feature on the future for Australian businesses, how to survive in the fast-moving, ever-changing global economy. And they boiled down all their wisdom to a list of tips. And the top tip, simply, was, again, like Harvard University, the top tip to survive in this fast-changing economy was slow down a bit. So I think that wherever you look nowadays, the message is the same, that less is often more and that slower is often better. It seems to me that we're moving towards a cultural tipping point. We've come through at least 150 years now of constant acceleration of everything. And for most of that time, it seems to me that speed was doing more good than bad. But lately, we've entered the stage of diminishing returns, where in a lot of areas of our lives, speed is doing more harm than good. And that is why this slow revolution is taking off all over the world. Now, it's very important to underline, I'd like to underline it again now, the fact that the slow movement, the slow philosophy is not about doing everything slowly. I can't think of anything worse. I love speed. And there is very much such a thing as bad slow. I mean, I had a problem with my ISP the other day. I spent 43 minutes on hold listening to The Entertainer on a constant loop, and I tell you that's bad slow. But the revolutionary idea is that there is something called good slow, even, and maybe even especially in the early 21st century. Good slow is about taking time to enjoy a meal. It's about taking time to look at a decision at work from every angle so you make the best call. Good slow is about reading Snow White to your children without skipping the pages. What slow is about, in essence, is about doing things at the right speed, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, and all those different registers in between. It's about doing everything as well as possible instead of as fast as possible. And in a conference like this, I think it also means something bigger than that. It means that even as everything around us is getting faster, and I don't think that will change, that's the keynote of our culture now, is one of acceleration. But that means that we need now, more than ever, to hang on to that other register, that other gear, to remember that as human beings, we need slowness. And if we lose it, we lose, I think, our humanity along with it. Now, all of that may sound wonderful in theory, but does it work in practice? And I'm happy to be able to say that the answer is yes. And I kind of stand before you as a rehabilitated speedaholic. I still love speed. I live in London, I work in the media, and I play fast sports in my spare time. But I've also reconnected with my inner tortoise. And I find that I move between speeds now in a way I didn't before. And what that means, the net effect, is I feel a lot healthier than I felt. I got a lot more energy. It's one of the ironies of slowing down. You have a lot more va-va-voom, because you're not so tired from going fast all the time. I feel a lot happier about things. You remember what Casper was talking about yesterday, that part of happiness is about enjoying the moment, being there, rather than being restlessly thinking about getting on to the next thing. I enjoy everything I do now so much more because I'm actually there, rather than mentally clocking the next item on my to-do list. I feel sharper and more productive at work. I feel like my life is deeper, more meaningful, because I have the time now to ask the big questions. Who am I? What am I running from? What am I running to? How do I fit into the world? In some ways, the most important thing, of course, is that my relationships feel stronger, because I'm actually there with people without one ear plugged into the BlackBerry or one eye on the inbox. And in some ways, the litmus test for me was always going to be bedtime stories, because that's where the whole adventure began. And there, too, the news is good. The whole routine has changed. I go into my son's bedroom at the end of the day. I sit on the bed. Both my feet are on the bed. And I read the stories at his pace. And we have this tyrannical idea of quality time with children. You set aside 10 minutes. Your child will tell you everything that's going on in his life, and then you can call Tokyo. But, of course, that's not the way children work. They need to feel that you are moving at their speed, at their pace, at their tempo before they open up. So I find now we'll be reading, I don't even know how long, because I've not got a watch on my wrist. And suddenly my son will say, something happened in the playground today that really upset me. And we'll have the kind of conversations we didn't have when I was skipping lines, paragraphs, and pages. And I got to tell you that Snow White's a lot more fun when there are 7 dwarves in it as well. And I have a kind of Hollywood ending to round all this up. And it goes a bit like this, that just after my book first came out, I was getting ready for the initial book tour of the United States. So I was downstairs with the bags packed, the door open, waiting for the minicab. My son came downstairs carrying a card that he'd made. And on the front, he'd stuck a sticker of Tintin, the cartoon character. We've been reading some Tintin books, and I recognized it as a sticker he'd got from a friend who'd brought it from the Belgian Tintin store in Brussels. And he'd said at the time, this is such a special sticker, it's never going to get used. But there it was on the front of this card. And I thought, wow. And he gave me the card. And I read it, and it said simply, "To Daddy, love Benjamin." And I said, that's really sweet. What's this a card for? Is it a card for, a good luck on the book tour? And he said, no, this is a card for being the best story reader in the world. And I thought, wow, this slowing down really works. But then I slightly ruined the moment by thinking, why didn't you say that 6 months ago? I could have ended my book on that anecdote. But that's not very slow. That's not very slow at all. So let's just push that second thought aside and go back to the first thought, which is, wow, this slowing down really does work. Thank you very much.